All right, and we are back with yet another pre-owner underwater. I am flying solo yet again. Happy to be doing so. I got a request from a dentist over Messenger, and he sent me a book. I must say on details on this practice, and he says there's some pretty interesting details behind it, and I'm really anxious to get to know it. So I'm going to go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Hi guys, my name is we're gonna go with Virgil because I really like Static Shock when I was a kid.
Okay.
Um, Graduated 2019 from dental
Yep.
school,
Cool.
somewhere in the Midwest.
Hmm.
Practicing also somewhere locally in the Midwest from where I graduated.
All right.
Looking at practices kind of close to where I live and also close to where my fiance lives. This one is being one close to where my fiance lives. Not really looking like a rural practice. It's going to be a little bit more of a metro area.
Okay.
Not urban, but certainly a little bit more metro. I don't mind. I don't mind doing something that's just outside the metro. You know what I mean? And just live in one of the
Yeah.
nicer metros, something like that. That'd
Sure.
perfectly be okay with me. This
Okay.
practice kind of checked a lot of the boxes for some of the things I was looking for. I don't consider myself like a clinical like mastermind or anything, but I'd like to do more than fillings and crowns. Do some root
Sure.
canals and I place implants. I started placing implants.
Oh, really? So
Um,
you graduated in 2019. Tell me about your
yeah, you guys are
journey
2019.
to getting all these added procedures. How'd you do that?
Well, root canals is just part of my graduation requirements. I mean, I did like a dozen or so in dental school, so
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I kind of just came into private practice. It's like, all right, it's a root canal. Yeah, I'll do it. Why do I
yeah,
refer that?
cool. Yeah, of
Um,
course.
Implants was a little bit. I don't necessarily recommend doing implants this way, but I definitely we basically did like these mini like residency days with me and the owner of the practice I'm working at. So I would just
Oh, wow.
do the socket graft and then I would stack like 5 implants, all placements in one day because we had 2 surgical kits. And then he'd just come in on one of his days off, or I'd work my implant column, he'd work his regular column, and that's like, hey, if I need you, come over here and take a look. It's
Wow.
basically how I learned how to place implants.
I actually think that's awesome. I mean,
Yeah.
if you can find somebody that's gonna, let you do that and in their practice, and they're gonna mentor you and kind of give you the space to learn that. I mean, that's just beautiful. That
Yeah.
certainly saves you a lot of trouble from going off to some course. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure you've done your own homework and stuff.
Yeah. There's certainly a lot of CE, and then I read a lot of Mish's textbook and all that before I got
Right.
rolling on it. I'll probably still do a class. I want
Yeah.
to make sure I'm not just DIYing my whole experience.
Yeah.
So probably do like an implant pathway or, guards class or something at some point.
Yeah, I actually, when I did Pathway, there was a fellow there that had already placed like 200 implants. And yeah, he was still,
200?
yeah, he'd
Oh
already
my
done
God.
it. And then he went through the whole course and he actually learned a whole lot just because, he kind of been doing cases and he'd find little complications that would happen along the way. And
Hmm.
sort of learning that foundation again, but with sort of a more experienced set of eyes was actually kind of helpful to him. So I think that's
Dude,
actually really
it's
valuable.
it's really true. You learn more from the mistakes and complications than you ever do from the smooth ones.
For sure. I think you kind of have to get in trouble a couple of times so you get a little more curious.
Yeah, and that's happened. That's okay though. I had to get bailed out once, but it was fine.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
happens.
it happens.
Yeah, that's when you learn the most. Yeah.
Right.
So
Exactly.
that's a little tangential. I got a real soft spot for implants, so as soon as someone starts talking about it, I go off on it. But
It's okay.
yeah. So you are looking at a location near your fiance.
Hmm.
So are you guys kind of talking about settling down there? Are you kind of anchoring in this area? This is pretty much where you got
Yeah,
to find practice.
yeah. For the foreseeable future. I mean, if I'm buying a practice, to me that means I'm anchoring down there.
Okay.
I don't think you buy a practice kind of passing by.
Sure, sure. And so, sort of the radius that you're working with is kind of confined, or you're kind of flexible on where you could commute.
No, she works in an urban setting, and she
Okay.
can't work from home. So
Oh, okay.
I don't want to practice in an urban setting. Um,
Okay.
so I have to be relatively close to the metro that she lives in right now.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. So, how much time have you kind of spent looking?
Oh man, a while. I've
Oh,
been
really?
checking broker websites, and I called
Okay.
some of the older doctors in that area. It's like, hey, if you know anyone looking to sell, dental society pages, reached out to those people. Um, This particular one was a broker listed one that I kind of
Okay.
stumbled upon. But no, I've been looking. I haven't done the mailers yet,
Okay.
but I
That was
will
my next
eventually.
question.
Yeah, I haven't done the mailers yet.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just like to see, kind of people going on, on and off market approaches for a while. Just make sure they're drumming up anything that could possibly be there before they, start kind of making moves. But,
Hmm.
if you got a great opportunity, then you kind of roll with it. So let's talk a little bit about what you're really looking for. So you mentioned that this had checked some boxes. What were those boxes? What were you looking
Yeah, so just me personally, I don't really like the idea of a practice in like a big medical skyrise complex. I feel like to
for?
me
Okay.
it seems like it's a little harder to brand and market. I like visibility, so this was at a
Okay.
four-way intersection at a red light. So there's without giving too much detail, there's lots of
Mhm.
complementary businesses right across the street. Nail salons, pet salons, restaurants,
Yeah.
things like that. The other side had a large church, so there's good traffic in that area. If I could describe it, I would say the area is maybe on one of the main streets, but not necessarily the nice part of that main street, if that makes any sense. It's kind of like on the opposite side of that town, but there's still a lot of passing traffic.
Okay. A standalone building versus being in a medical complex is just about marketability, the ability to grow the patient base. Is that
Yeah, because where
the
I
way to go?
practice right now, and again, I'm biased, but I mean, we literally have people that just walk right into our office. It's like, hey, you guys have any openings? Because we're like right
Yeah,
next to a gigantic grocery store and then a bunch of other
that's great.
businesses. So it's like, man,
Yeah.
and we do not do a good job with marketing at all. I mean, we're terrible at it, honestly. The owner is not on par with a lot of, or- not to go on a side tangent, but there's a reason I want to leave.
Oh, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah,
Yeah, please.
so
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
there's certainly a reason I want to leave my current associateship. It hasn't all been rainbows and sunshines. He's a bit
Yeah.
kind of feeds you to the wolves a little bit, I guess. It's a kind of a low fee, high volume office, and
Okay.
wasn't
Yeah.
a ton of mentorship. I know, like, other than the implants, it's really just been grab me if you really need me kind of thing, which is okay. He kind of stayed out of my way. This was
Yeah.
my only one and only job right out of dental school, so I don't really know any
Right.
different. I didn't work the corporate thing. I don't know what it's like to have, some office manager breathing down your neck or anything. I don't
Yeah.
really know,
Okay.
but
So what is it that kind of attracted you to ownership from going to, being kind of happy in that
yeah.
spot,
So
saying, you know what, I want to own, not a different job, I want to own.
yeah, you know what? Kind of feeding off of that, my current associateship experience. Whenever I need something, it's just like so many hoops I gotta jump through with the guy, and then it's like, oh, sorry, not in the budget, and can't do that. And then
Okay.
I come from basically an entire family of small business owners. I'm pretty
Okay.
much the only one in my family that doesn't currently own his own business that is working.
Okay.
So
Okay. You get
that the
you get some flack
entrepreneurial
from that.
blood is definitely in
Okay.
me for sure.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Well, I want to make sure you're not doing it because you feel obligated to by your family or in some
No,
comments
no,
at the dinner table or something.
no,
Okay.
no, no, no.
Yeah, fair enough. So it sounds like you're looking for autonomy,
Hmm.
and you've already
I'll
always
call my
kind of
own
had like an
shots,
entrepreneur.
yeah. And
Yeah, exactly.
and
Okay.
whenever you propose an idea, and I can't shoot it down. If I'm in the office, I'm not going to shoot it
Mhm.
down. Or I guess the staff could shoot it down technically. But like, for example, like whenever I propose, hey, maybe we should let patients finance implants in 6 equal payments because it takes 6 months to do it anyways. And then she's like, oh no, that's a terrible idea. They'll never pay. They'll never come back. I'm like, okay, well, whatever.
Yeah. 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 So it just sounds like you got a lot of ideas and maybe they're not being fully appreciated
No,
or understood, and you kind of just want to be able to implement. So
pretty
yeah, I
much,
think
yeah.
those are all good reasons for sure.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, cool. So what kind of practice were you looking for? I mean, did you have like an idea of solo versus group? What are you doing in this practice? What's it like?
You know
How
what?
solid is that?
I don't really like the idea of like the mega practice with 100,000 a month overhead. Um,
Mhm.
I don't
Okay.
think that's really my style per se. I think slightly smaller, maybe a two doc office where,
Okay.
if I need to take some time off, there's someone that can keep the office running, vice
Mhm.
versa. Something like that, like a two, maybe three doc office would be fine with me. So
Okay.
certainly
All right.
I don't think a solo office is the right fit for me either long term. I think our group setting would
Okay.
definitely be better.
Okay, so a smaller group looking to take on an associate.
Mhm.
Were you kind of hoping that whoever sold you a practice would stay on for a while? Did you have some ideas about how that associate would come into being?
You know what? I would have preferred that. Yeah. Yeah. If the seller was willing to stay on for at least a short term, maybe 6 months, 12 months, Um,
Yeah.
it'll kind of let me phase in while he phases part-time or completely out. That
Yeah.
would have been the ideal situation. But then I feel like you could also run into the situation, and this is something I just thought of recently. It's like, well, if the other guy's still there, I could schedule a crown, and the patient will like, oh, I want to go with Doctor Oldie, and not Doctor New Guy.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So,
No, I
so
mean
sometimes it
that
might be
happens.
better just get him out quick after you've gone through hygiene a couple once, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair enough. Okay. So you were looking for an office that would support yourself and an associate doc. I'm sure you
Eventually,
want to
eventually support the
have
associate doc.
eventually.
Yeah,
Okay. So
it doesn't
maybe
need it
not.
right away. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. But that's where you're trying to get to. And if you
yeah,
could do it immediately or expediently, maybe that would be a
yeah.
good thing.
Sure,
Okay. All right. Fair enough. So it sounds like you're kind of looking for like, maybe 6 op practice, 7 op practice, something like that.
something like
Nothing
that.
too
Yeah,
big.
something like that.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. So what'd you find?
Yeah, so the office is one of the nicer metro areas. We already discussed all that. Office is
Mhm.
doing about 560,000, overhead 69%, and doctor only does fillings and crowns. No perio program, no endo. Doesn't even do abutments for the implants. He wants the oral surgeon to put the abutment on for him. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
All
he
right.
doesn't even do full dentures. He's like, oh, full dentures is pros. Yeah, your first full dentures. Well, occasionally does partials and flippers. Um,
He just does partials and flippers and won't do a
yeah,
complete
he
upper.
doesn't do full dentures. He's like, yeah, there's too much headache with them, and just refers them. I was like,
There's too
okay,
much headache. Oh, really?
yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah. He
Okay.
won't even do full dentures. So it's
Yeah. I mean,
definitely a referadontist practice. So his 560 might be my 760 or whatever.
okay. Yeah. So there's a lot more that you could bring to the table and keep in
Yeah,
house.
with the
Yeah.
and with the one red flag being, I feel like he's overdiagnosing on crowns for sure.
Feel
And
that way. Okay.
I don't know if you noticed that in the report I sent you, but his crown to three surface, four surface filling ratio was like 18 to 1.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, you saw that.
Yeah. So just to recap on what Virgil's talking about here. So we refer to the crown to 3-4 surface filling ratio. It's sort of a surrogate indicator for how crown leaning or aggressive a doc is in sort of
Hmm.
similar diagnostic situations where some people might lean for a 3 or 4 surface filling, others would say a crown. It's not necessarily a judgment of the dentist, but generally we see, we like to see numbers that are less than 1, meaning they're a little bit more conservative, kind of going with the direct restorations more often. Not uncommon to see anywhere from like 1 to 3. I have seen some, in the 9 low teens. 18 is notable. It's very notable. I mean, that's
Yeah,
basically like no 3 and 4 surface
he didn't
fillings
do a
virtually.
single four surface filling last year. Not
Yeah,
not one four
yeah,
surface filling.
yeah. So it's interesting. And what it means in terms of a transition is if you are, more conservative in that camp, with reference to just, your general crown and
Hmm.
bridge, there can be a loss in restorative revenue there
Hmm.
if you were only to be treating the same amount of dentistry just because of the choices
Right.
that
And
in those situations. Yeah.
so to that point, I'm not necessarily sure if he's over diagnosing crowns versus underdiagnosing fillings, because
Yeah.
he'll do
Yeah.
25, 30 units a month, which isn't, I mean, it's not that
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah,
Um,
it could just be a philosophical thing of like, oh, I just feel like if a tooth needs a 3 or 4 surface filling, I can just go for a crown, and maybe they feel more confident in their restorations. Like,
mhm,
you know, there's circumstances around that. It's just something we like to be aware of, and we generally see it if it's a less than 1, then that's opportunity because generally, a new dentist coming in
electric
there is going to be a
fillings
little more
too.
aggressive than that. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't look at 18 and say, okay, this is a no go. It's not like an absolute no way we're going to do this, but kind of be aware that
Hmm.
there might be some interesting dentistry happening. But I think you're right. I mean, the 25 to 30 crowns, a month is not like something absolutely, out of this world. It's not like he's just trying to crown any tooth he sees. It's just sort of he's making that decision
Hmm.
when it comes along. Yeah, so that's interesting. Were there any other things that like really threw you off?
So the biggest wrinkle with this office is he has another location in the town over. and they're both for
What's the
sale.
how far is that town over?
Less than 20 minutes, the other location.
Ooh,
Okay.
okay. And you said this is kind of like outside of a metro, but like
Right. Yeah.
sort of
Yeah. Like a suburb-ish. Yeah. Suburbs.
yeah. Do you know if maybe there are like patients that kind of go between the two
So,
practices or
okay. So the two towns are like oil and water, they don't really,
okay.
one's kind of the nicer town. One's the working class town. I don't know to be politically correct
Okay.
on this, but
I understand.
higher income, lower income. And the ones
Yeah.
from the lower income might go to the higher income because it's the nicer office.
Yeah.
Okay, but not
Okay.
so much the other way around. Um,
Okay. So which one are you looking at?
this is the higher income one. This is the higher
Okay.
income one. Yeah. So
All
my concern is more is like if he sells, if I buy
right.
this office and he still practices part time at the other office, and they may just want to go there. You know what I mean? Because they follow the doctor.
Yeah, I would be really concerned about that actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so tell me a little bit more about the doctor, his sort of timeline. Have you met him? Been able to kind of get some of that
Yeah,
info?
I met him. I saw both locations. I was considering buying one or both of them. Probably one of them. He's 70 years old. He is ready to retire. There's not a whole lot to it. He had a family member who was a dentist who he thought would be
Okay.
his heir apparent. They decided they
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to live in that city anymore and moved, to the other side of the ocean. Um, so he didn't
Okay.
have an heir apparent. He hired an
Yeah.
associate who, from what I can tell by the numbers, was not a very good associate. In a full year, he was doing somewhere in the neighborhood of like 290 to 320,000 in production, which that's not good, generally speaking, for someone that's 5 6 years out. Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's curious. I'd want to know more about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I talked to the owner, and he didn't have glowing things to say about the associate. And he was like, "Yeah, this guy was still taking 2.5 hours on a crown prep, and he's taking 4 hours to take some teeth out." I'm like, "Geez."
Wow.
So from
So the
from what it sounds like,
wow.
he was
Yeah.
definitely putting it on the associate for underperforming, which made sense because he was legitimately doing this technically more of a scope of dentistry than the owner, because he was doing some extractions and more dentures and stuff like that. So his scope was actually more than the owner, but his production was less than half.
Hmm. So more diverse skill set, but just not
Can't
really,
do it. Yeah,
pumping out the numbers.
yeah,
Okay. That's interesting. Yeah, those are some really like interesting numbers for someone that's been out 5 or 6 years.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess you can take the word on that one and just be like, okay, that's what happened. But um, I would probe a little bit further just to kind of understand. I mean, since those are more recent numbers, that's how the office has been performing. I would just want to know if
Hmm.
like anything else has changed and you could attribute that to anything else, and
Hmm.
maybe just kind of get a beat on what was going on there because that is kind of like weird.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So how was the office doing when the heir apparent was there?
Yeah,
Was
so that would have
they
been
working?
2016 when his original heir apparent was there, and between the two locations, they were doing 2.2 million. I think it was
Oh wow.
900 at the location that I'm looking at, and then the rest was at the other location.
Yeah.
Um,
So that's been a few years though.
it was 2016. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. So, do you know like how the patient base has changed since then? I mean, has there been attrition since the other doc left, or
I don't know
what's
the
happened?
active patient attrition. No, I know that he has two full-time hygienists right now.
Okay, in both practices.
Yeah, both offices have two full-time hygienists.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. So you said both of these are for sale,
Both of them are for sale. Yeah,
and you're sort of looking at the one that's in the more affluent area, for
yeah.
what reason?
Because the other one had a 79% overhead, and more
Okay.
important to that is it would have been probably a $250,000 cosmetic and internal rehab. It was
Mm-hmm.
not a well-kept office
No,
at
I'm
all.
down.
Yeah, very rundown office. I don't
Okay.
know if he's gonna even be able to sell it. I think it's probably gonna end up being a chart sale. I don't I pray for the doctor that wants to go in there and try to, turn that office into a good-looking dental office.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Um,
would have been tough. Probably a bigger project than I would have wanted to try.
Sure. So being that this is an older dentist, not doing any implants, not doing really anything terribly
Mhm.
complex or modern, I mean, was it a digital office? Do they have a CBCT or anything? I would kind of doubt that.
They had a film pano,
Oh boy.
um, but they did have computers in every operatory. EagleSoft, digital X-rays.
Okay.
Some newer chairs, like some ADEC chairs that were within the last 10 years.
Okay. Good.
So it was okay.
Yeah.
You can see the pictures on the link I sent you too. I mean,
Right.
the more affluent office would not be a difficult cosmetic rehab.
No, it was okay.
You know,
Yeah. I mean, it
yeah,
was like an
it was
older
okay.
office, but it was fine. The
Yeah,
other one had some dungeon vibes. I was
yeah, right.
I was getting a little claustrophobic. But I, whatever works for that area, I suppose. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. So that's interesting. You did say both of them are for sale, and did you ever kind of run through the idea of maybe trying to purchase both or merging the two
I did.
practices?
You can't. I don't think merging with a 20-minute distance in two towns that don't necessarily intermingle would
They're
have been.
missable. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
I see what you're saying there.
yeah. I
Okay.
think merging would have been tough, especially if the doctor probably would have wanted to merge and then leave within a year. I feel like the attrition would have been so high at that point. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Well, the only thing that kind of makes me lean towards a merger before you kind of told me about the towns themselves and the commute was just the idea that something could happen. The seller sells this practice to you and then goes to the other one just 20 minutes away. Um, that's the doctor that people kind of have a relationship with. Maybe they feel comfortable going over there. Not all will, but some will. Maybe they're not too jazzed on seeing the newer dentist that's been out of
Mhm.
school for a couple of years. And I would expect some attrition for sure, even though those are totally different environments. I mean, somebody that's been in that community for a while could definitely pull some patients.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah.
what would you say if you stayed on at the location I'm considering for 1 day a week? Do you think that would, hinder or stop some of the hemorrhaging on attrition?
Hmm. Honestly, I don't know because that's just sort of just delaying. I mean, maybe it keeps them around long enough to like you. But if they're just coming
Yeah.
in to see him like 1 day a week, are they really going to get enough FaceTime with you to say, yeah, no, I'll go see them after so and so leaves? I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not sure if it would make too much of a difference either way. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. Um, actually, I talked to George before we came on, and I'll tell you,
Mhm.
I was talking about the prospect of the selling dentist going over 20 minutes away to the other practice, and he was like,
Mhm.
absolutely no way, I would never do that. And he was like, I would either buy both practices or none, and I kind of expected him to say that because
Mhm.
that attrition is something that would definitely be an issue. You don't know how long they might be practicing at the other place. You don't know
Mhm.
what narrative how the narrative you're being told really lines up with what might actually happen. Obviously things are changing really quickly right now, and you don't want to
Mhm.
be competing with that dentist that everyone's been seeing for so long. It's 20 minutes away, and there might be a significant amount of people that would bother to go over there. Um, so yeah, that's definitely a predicament. I mean, I would definitely say that's a red flag for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I mean, what are your general thoughts on it? How would you
Yeah, it's a red flag. I guess my mindset was, if I'm there 3 days a week, he's there 1 day a week, then I limit some of the hemorrhaging from
you could
it's kind of a saving face thing, I guess,
sure.
Um, and more than anything, I feel like I could just grow from the things he's not doing, so, okay, you're not every patient's gonna wanna see the original doctor, but some will, right? But if he's not doing a denture, a root canal, or an implant, or basically anything that's not a filling or a crown, I could
Yeah.
still keep myself fairly busy
Yeah. And what about the
until he sells the other location, and then
sure.
it doesn't matter,
Sure, you're right.
right?
Um, what about the staff? Have they been there a long time? What kind of goodwill are
One
we
assistant
talking?
has, the rest of them have been turned over within the last 10 years or so.
Okay,
One assistant has. Yeah,
okay. And then the last
one
10.
assistant's been there for, like, 30 years, and then the rest of the staff is, within the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I kind of see that as a shelter against attrition too. A lot of times people, will come to a practice for the hygienist that they see, twice a year. But if they haven't been there a long time, and I wouldn't feel as confident in that loyalty either. So yeah, I would definitely
Yeah, good
kind of
point, I didn't think of that.
yeah. I mean, seriously, I mean, when I would go to the dentist, I kind of just go to my friends now, but when I would go to the dentist, it was always more about what hygienist I was seeing. I would like request a certain hygienist because that was
Hmm.
just like the person that I knew so well. And so I always kind
Right.
of like to look at that, especially if I'm worried about attrition. How long has the staff been there? If they've been there for 20 years or something like that, I'm like, yeah, there's definitely some people that have been seeing them the whole time they've been there, and they're not going to go anywhere just because
Hmm.
the doctor left. Um, so it's something to think about. So with a newer staff, I don't know. I guess I get a little bit nervous about that. Um, do you? I Would you happen to have any idea, why there's turnover happening? Maybe it's associated with
Um,
heir apparent leaving and.
I know it had part to do with that he doesn't offer any benefits to the staff,
Oh, okay.
so they're just straight income,
Well, there's a good,
or straight hourly.
yeah, there's a good pivot. So how's the staff pay? How's the staff percentage?
30.1 right now. It's a little overstaffed right now, so
Yeah,
he's doing about 560,000.
yeah.
But he has two assistants because he didn't let one of the assistants go when the underperforming associate left. He just kept both of them.
Okay.
So one assistant travels with him between the two locations right now, and the other
Okay.
one kind of mans the fort at one office.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
probably not necessary, for an office doing under 600,000 to have two assistants. At least I don't think it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, maybe that floating assistant would kind of go with him to the other practice and maybe pull some things along with him, right?
Mm, mm,
Yeah, but that's maybe that's small beans. But I guess a 30% staff percentage. It's not ideal.
mhm.
It is a little higher than we like to see. I'd like something kind of in the mid 20s, but it's not something that totally scares me. However, when you sent me over the evaluation, I saw some interesting supply and lab numbers
Yeah.
that
So
were pretty concerning.
yeah. So the reason is that he bills all the lab costs, the supply costs, equipment costs for both locations out of one location.
The
So
other,
what you're seeing is yeah. So what you're seeing for the lab bill is actually the combination of the two offices together, not just the one I'm considering.
okay,
So it's really less than half of that, but old doctor that doesn't know how to do his P&Ls and um, yeah, that's what I have to work with there. I'm gonna assume that for the lab cost, and that's why the ad backs are so high.
right,
You know,
yeah, yeah, I
right?
got you.
So I'm assuming that since this location that I'm considering was doing about 44% of his total volume, that the lab cost is probably 44% of what was represented,
Yeah.
roundabout.
Yeah, I suppose so. I'm kind of going over things for the audience because obviously, they're not
Hmm.
seeing what we're seeing. I made those adjustments to the spreadsheet that you sent me. I'm gonna have to have that bleeped out, but I'll have. I looked at the numbers, and they're still a little bit on the high side. I made that
Hmm.
theoretical 40% adjustment, and still seeing 7% supply and lab costs. This isn't a super high producing office, especially in the past year. So, obviously, there's
Yeah.
a lot of production that you could add.
And as
You could
far
add.
as the supply, I think he's adding things that may not actually be supply, like, computers and
Oh,
website
really?
maintenance and stuff like that.
Gosh,
Because
what
if
a
you look
mess.
at the marketing, it's not very high. It was like
Yeah.
2.6 between the two locations. So the one location was really only 1.3.
Okay. Yeah.
So 1.3%. And then that you know, doesn't do any marketing basically.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta tell you, I just don't feel super confident in how these numbers are being shifted around. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
it's just
exactly.
like when they're kind of moving things from office to office, and like the
You
other
don't know what you're
office,
getting.
right? And it's like all these numbers are being packed into this practice, but then like the other practice also has high overhead, right?
Yeah.
So it's like God, this thing must be a mess. Like I wonder if it's just systems or just how things are being
Hmm.
shifted around. So that's where due diligence is really going to come in. Have a CPA, have your broker, whoever, somebody really look into this and
Hmm.
kind of take a deep dive into the financials and the systems and everything, and just like get a really good understanding of how these numbers are actually shaking out.
Hmm.
Um, because I can see where you're coming from, saying, okay, well, this is underperforming in the past year, but possibly there is a patient base there that, if I come in, or you come in, and you have all these added procedures, and you're producing a lot more, and you're doing full dentures, you can add a lot there. and you can outpace some of these fixed costs and hopefully get a handle on some of these variable costs. Um, but yeah, I mean, what it comes down to though is there's just so many caveats here, so many things
Mhm.
that have to happen for this to be like a really great cash flowing opportunity. And it's like,
Mhm.
can you put lipstick on this pig? Sure, like it'll take some time, right?
Yeah.
But it's like there's going to be some work to be done, and there's a lot of variables that are just kind of unknown here. One thing we haven't mentioned is real estate. So is the building up for sale or
He wants to be a landlord for 5 years and then sell it to me.
okay?
But
Yeah,
the
and
rent was like pretty reasonable for the area. The
okay,
rent he was asking for, it was I'd find renting it for that price for 5 years. It's fine.
okay, all right, that's fine. So it's I'm seeing 7 ops.
Yeah,
Uh,
7 ops.
yeah, so there's 2 hygienists in there. So they're probably just working out of 2 or 3 columns. So
Yeah.
what's happening?
Well, he might be doing 4 on the days he's there because he has hygiene have 2 columns and then he would run 2 columns.
Right. That's
Right.
what I'm referring to. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, yeah. So I mean, I feel like there's sufficient room to where you could come in there, grow things out, maybe take on another associate, get these variable costs figured out, add on some procedures, and just do a number of things to kind of get this thing up to a potential
Hmm.
that it has, and maybe get it up to the sort of avatar that we refer to as like the
Hmm.
profitable group model. But it's just got a ways to go, and there's a number of things that I'm just not terribly enthused about. Also, do you know what the new patients are looking like? New patients per month?
He had 230 in 2019 at the location I'm looking at.
Yeah. Okay.
So a little less than 20 a month.
Okay. I mean, that's generally enough to support one doc, and
Yeah.
he's not doing a whole lot of marketing, and you know,
No, almost no marketing. I think he was also, I don't know. Are you supposed to count like toothbrushes with your own little, name on that as marketing? I don't know. He was. So I don't even know how much of that was actually really marketing.
yeah, everything is marketing, don't you
Yeah,
know?
right.
Uh, Red oil. Yeah. So I feel like, maybe in us sort of going through all this, I don't think I've told you anything you didn't already know. I mean, it seems like you've already done a lot of homework, but in just sort of talking this out, do you have any different feelings about this opportunity at all? Compared to
No,
what?
that's pretty much yeah, all the concerns we've outlined. I knew they were like real concerns, but
Yeah.
the pros were also pretty blaring too. The location is good,
Yeah.
Referadontist, 7 ops, reasonable rent. So there was some really great pros, but also some really blaring negatives too.
Yeah. And just some unknowns, the due
Yeah,
diligence, knowing what the dentist is going to be doing if you buy this practice. Is he going to go over to the other practice? Or how many patients might he pull? We're not even entirely sure how many active patients there are in this practice currently. Was there a number on that?
there was yeah, the broker listed 1,600. There was about
Okay.
2,000 pro fees done in 2019. So I don't know how you like to calculate active patients.
Yeah. Well, I mean, generally, the last 18 months, a lot of times they don't really specify the period they're looking at.
Yeah,
Brokers are a little more accurate than that. Um,
yeah,
Yeah, I mean that's decent, but there's still growth that you want to see there. I think you would definitely want. I mean, you've identified the areas where there's internal growth, but I think I would definitely want to see
some
some external
external
growth.
growth. Yeah, I think getting a good marketing campaign is paramount.
Yeah, and I think you would do well with that. Certainly better than the person just putting names on the toothbrushes. So
Right.
um, yeah, I mean, honestly, I put the ball in your court. Like, is this like a wonderful, like ideal acquisition that we love to carry on
I don't
about?
consider it a slam dunk acquisition by
No,
any means. Yeah, not at all.
it is not. I mean, is it a dumpster fire?
Probably also not. No.
No, I don't think it is. It's just going to be work.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be work to get it to where you want to be. And it's always way more ideal when the thing you're buying out is already kind of ready made and cash flowing. That's been my center for a long time. If when I come in here, is it going to be cash flowing? With what I'm seeing currently, with how the numbers are as tentative and weird as they are, it's not really cash flowing a whole lot.
Mm.
Um, so
It'd probably be a pay cut from where I'm currently as an
exactly.
associate my first year.
Yeah, you'd be paying to own for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that something I mean, it sounds like you are prepared for that.
Yeah, I don't, it's okay. You know, I almost want to treat it like a pseudo startup where
It's
it,
exactly what it is.
you know what I mean?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah. Yeah. That's how I feel about it too. I mean, for you, I feel I want there to be a better opportunity for you.
Yeah.
You know, I want there to be something that's ready made for someone that's energetic and capable like you that can come in there and just kill it. And it's already a little more ready made for you. And it comes down to, what's going to be out there for this location that you're wanting to live in. I mean, you are kind of, anchored to this location, and I don't know what your radius is. And I mean, it sounds like there might still be some stones that haven't been overturned yet.
Hmm.
Still keep working on the on market stuff, but in parallel, work with off market. Go to
Hmm.
study clubs, get the name around. Just talk to everybody, let them know you're looking. And like I have a feeling that there's just something else out there for you.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to put a full stop on this one because I know it's exciting. You've obviously put a whole lot of effort into it. I just wish it were better.
Yeah.
I wish that it wasn't going to look like a whole year of like just trying to, fix what's not working and do, this whole like cosmetic rehaul and get a CBCT in there and get everything up to date and get the marketing going.
Do you think there's
I'm
really
glad.
that many offices from the ones I've seen? Granted, I've only seen on market, but I mean, the offices that have really good systems with CBCTs and nice cosmetics are, I mean, it's like waiting for, that doesn't even off market, that's hard to find.
Sure.
Yeah.
Harder, but
Harder.
not
Yeah.
impossible. Not
Right.
impossible. But it's like, what's the effort of trying to find that practice versus the effort of trying to take something like this to where you want it, right? Like
Yeah.
that's. I mean, either way, you're working hard, right? Like you're
Right.
you're wading through some pretty rough waters, I think.
Do you think it's
Um,
priced accurately for what it is? I think the list price was about 400,000, which
um,
is
Probably
okay.
for an area like you're talking about.
Hmm.
It's sort of obeying the market rule that we kind of follow. Like it's like the 66% of the last year's collections, and then there's kind of a premium for areas that are more affluent and sought after, I suppose, if that's the kind of
Hmm.
area that you're talking about. As far as from a real business perspective, a little overpriced.
That's what I
You
was
know,
thinking too.
yeah, from a business perspective, it is overpriced for
Right.
sure.
That's what I was
Um,
thinking.
so again, like not ideal. I mean, can you do it? Sure. Should you do it? That's up to you, right?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
I can only take it so far, right? Because like ultimately it's up to what you're willing to do, what you want to do. If there's something in you though that has a passion in trying to rehab this practice and you know make it into what you want and mold it,
Hmm.
if that process, even if you're paying for it, is something you want to do, cool. I mean, there's people that do true startups out there, right? And they love it. So, I mean, it's really up to the sort
And
of
say,
journey that you want to take on.
like if you approach it like a pseudo startup with 1,000 patients and that and good location, then it's not bad. But if you think of it as a strong cash flowing acquisition that we usually look for, then it's not what you're looking for.
Exactly. Yeah, you're right on the money. Like I couldn't have said it better. Seriously. Um, so yeah, man, the ball's in your court with that.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you stay where you are. You kind of put up with the problems you have. You keep looking, and you try and find something else. Maybe you give it 6 months. Maybe you give it a year. You keep learning. You keep building your skill set. That's another path you can go to as
Yeah,
well.
it's
I
not a
mean,
bad route.
yeah, I mean, you're super young, you're fresh out, still got stars in your eyes, um, still willing to do full dentures, right?
still
So,
still do three surface fillings.
yeah, yeah, some people still do those. Um, yeah, look, man. I mean, ultimately, again, it's up to you. You've got plenty of options.
Hmm.
You can't really go wrong. Like you're going to be happy. You're going to be successful either way. I mean, I'm sure you've got a great fiance, and you
Hmm.
guys are going to be settling down, getting married, and everything, and it's going to be awesome. So it's like there's no bad news really. It's just you know, did you find like a diamond in the rough? Not exactly. It's more just the rough, but maybe you could make it into a diamond with enough heat and pressure.
Hmm.
You know. Um, so how do you feel about that? I mean, have I
No,
have I
it's
swayed you any particular ways, or is it just more questions now?
I don't know if it's squeaked any particular ways.
Yeah,
Yeah, I definitely want to keep looking for sure. Uh,
yeah,
Maybe see how negotiable the price is. Um, and then maybe if we can get some more clarity on the actual financials rather than these weird ad
sure,
backs, then
sure,
I,
yeah,
I know there's going to be pretty high like lab costs because he's crowning everything. Um,
hmm
but some of the other costs, like why is labs or like office supplies what it is? Can we get like more of a
Yeah,
breakdown on that? You know?
that was weird. Yeah. So yeah, you know what? That's actually a really good point. Just get the due diligence, get the real numbers. Figure out what this office is really offering, and then maybe you can make a more informed decision. All the while, you're still looking, and you're still working, and that way you're kind of straddling all your options, and you'll be able to make a more informed decision at a later juncture.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Cool.
that's probably a good move for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. How you feel about that?
I think that sounds about right. Maybe I'll actually do the mailing campaign and keep putting off.
Hey, there you go.
You made a
Yeah,
post about it, right? In the Facebook
I
page
sure
about it?
did.
Okay, I gotta dig that up
Yep.
somewhere.
I don't. We ought to pin it. For some reason or another, George and Richard took me off the moderator privileges. I don't know why. Maybe I was getting sick with power, but yeah, maybe we can pin it. If not, I'll just tag you in it,
Okay.
and you can get to work on it. And if you need any help, you just let me know.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good, man.
For sure, man. Well, let me tell you, Virgil, this has been a whole lot of fun. I'm a personal fan of Static Shock, and this has just been a really good interview, man. You're coming through with a lot of energy. You're a young dentist. You're where I hope to be in a couple of years. You got a great skill set. You're in a good spot, man. And I really appreciate you coming on here. Sharing what you're going through, your process. I'm super excited for you.
Mhm.
If you end up going with this practice, it's not the end of the world. I won't be mad at you. And I want to see what you can do with it for sure. So I want to follow
Yeah.
up either way.
Alrighty. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it.
All right, buddy. Have a good one.
All right. See ya.